So there's this plant out there, and it is sparking a huge debate all over the world. For some people, it's a natural remedy that's literally saved their lives. But for others, it's a dangerous, unregulated high. It's called Kratom. So what's the real story here? Let's dig in. This really is the heart of it, isn't it? On one side, you have centuries of traditional use and these incredible personal stories of relief. But on the other side, you've got these really stark warnings from health authorities and a growing number of emergency room visits. We're going to unpack both sides of this very complicated story.
Okay, so to really get what kratom is all about, you've got to start with it's kind of weird biological identity. It's a plant that's just full of contradictions.
Okay, so this is the central paradox of kratom. And honestly, it's kind of mind-bending. Botanically, this plant is a direct cousin of coffee. It's in the same family. But chemically, its active compounds hit the exact same opioid receptors in our brains as something like morphine. So a coffee relative that acts like an opioid? How on earth does that even work? That's the mystery we really need to solve. And this isn't some newfangled designer drug cooked up in a lab. No. Kratom's story starts centuries ago, deep in the rainforests of Southeast Asia. So let's take a look at its roots. For generations, this wasn't really seen as a recreational drug. It was a tool. Laborers and farmers, they'd chew on the fresh leaves for a mild stimulant effect, kind of like their version of a morning coffee to get through a really hard day's work. It was also brewed as a tea for social events and used in traditional medicine for things like pain or even to help people get off of opium. And this history is so important because it frames kratom as a cultural plant, not just a substance. Okay, now fast forward to today. That traditional plant has just exploded onto the scene in the West. By 2021, it was estimated that 1.7 million Americans were using kratom. I mean, that is a massive leap from a regional tool to a full-blown national phenomenon. So what is going on? What's driving this?
And the reasons? Well, they're deeply connected to our modern healthcare system. You have people turning to kratom to try and manage chronic pain on their own, looking for anything other than prescription opioids. A lot of people use it to handle withdrawal symptoms, seeing it as a way to escape the grip of much more dangerous drugs. This is totally a user-led movement, driven by people who are desperately searching for solutions they feel they just can't get anywhere else.
So how can one single plant give a farmer a little boost of energy, but also provide opioid-like pain relief? It seems impossible, right? Well, the answer is all in its unique and really complex chemistry. Everything that kratom does, it all comes down to these things called alkaloids. You can think of them as the plant's active chemical compounds. So while coffee has its one main star, right, caffeine, well, kratom has this whole cocktail of over 40 different alkaloids. And they definitely don't all do the same thing. But two of them are the real stars of the show. All right, let's meet the two key players. First, you have mitragyna. It's the most common alkaloid in the leaf, by far. And then you've got 7-hydroxymitragynine, or just 7-OH for short. Now get this, it's found in these tiny amounts, like less than 2% of the total. But it is incredibly potent, even more potent than morphine at that opioid receptor. This difference in power is absolutely critical to understanding both the good and the bad of kratom. Okay, now this is probably the most exciting and important scientific claim about kratom. You see, typical opioids, like morphine, they trigger two main pathways in your body. One is for pain relief, which is great, but the other one, this beta-arrestin pathway, is linked to the most dangerous side effects, like respiratory depression, when someone stops breathing. But look at kratom's compounds. They seem to activate the good pain relief pathway without strongly activating the dangerous one. Scientists call this a biased agonist, and it's basically the holy grail for designing a potentially safer painkiller. But, and this is a huge but, all that amazing potential comes with a massive catch. The kratom market right now is pretty much the Wild West. It's unregulated, and that creates a whole new world of dangers for people using it. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has been crystal clear on this. They've put out multiple warnings, flat out urging people not to use kratom and pointing to some really significant health risks. And this isn't just a hypothetical thing. The data is showing a pretty worrying trend. As kratom got more popular, the emergencies shot up. Calls to U.S. poison control centers about kratom went through the roof. They increased 50-folds between 2011 and 2017. A 50-fold increase! That surge really shines a spotlight on a public health issue that regulators are now scrambling to deal with. So what are the specific worries? Well, health authorities point to risks of things like liver toxicity and seizures, and, crucially, the potential for substance use disorder and physical dependence. While a lot of advocates say it's much less addictive than traditional opioids, that risk isn't zero, especially when you have that really potent 7-OH alkaloid in the mix. And then you've got this whole other layer of problems. Because there's no federal oversight, products can be, and have been, contaminated with some really nasty stuff like heavy metals and salmonella. There's no standard for labeling, so consumers have absolutely no idea what they're actually buying, how strong it is, or what's in it. So this brings us right to the heart of the conflict. You've got these really passionate arguments on both sides. So what's the path forward? Is the answer to ban it, or is it to actually study it?
You know, what's the single biggest problem here? It's variability. One bag of Kratom you buy online or in a store can be dramatically different from the next one. The chemical makeup is all over the place. And that wild inconsistency makes safe, reliable dosing nearly impossible. It's a huge problem for users, and it's a massive roadblock for scientists who are just trying to figure out what this plant really does. So here it is, the whole debate summarized in one spot. On the left, you've got the case for Kratom, its long history of traditional use, its exciting potential as a safer alternative to opioids, and the thousands of stories from people who say it's helped them. But on the right, the case against is just as strong. Serious warnings from the FDA, the very real dangers of a contaminated and unregulated market, and, the undeniable potential for abuse and dependence. Both sides have really valid points.
And so we're left with this question. Millions of people are already using Kratom, a lot of times because they feel like they have no other options. So is the biggest risk the plant itself, or is the bigger risk our own ignorance about it? When you've got the potential for a safer painkiller on one hand and a public health crisis on the other, the real question might be, can we honestly afford not to find out what this plant is truly capable of?